formed and created, and then also touch a little bit on the differences between the state regulations for farmers markets and how and why they may differ from AIM. And then really I'm hoping that during the Q&A, we'll be able to answer a lot of questions and provide some more clarity for all of you who are here who may not be up to speed with all of the rules and regulations at AIM, what's changed, some of the new processes and procedures that we have been implementing. So for those of you who are able to, if you could just type into the chat what farmer business you're with, if you are a participant at AIM's markets and how long you've been here, and if there's any specific topics that you are particularly interested in, that would be great. We have a loose agenda, but I do want to try to focus on what will be the most important for all of you and help you guys get the most out of this. So we'll jump in. For those of you who don't know, I recognize most of the names in here, but I'm Chase Pennington. I am the environmental and agricultural integrity specialist at AIM. I've been with AIM for just over 11 years now. I began my time at AIM as an assistant manager at the Grand Lake Farmers Market, and then became a market manager at our Hayward Market. And over the subsequent about 9 years, I've moved around to just about all of our markets other than Newark as a market manager, then became a senior market manager, our director of market operations, and then our environmental and agricultural integrity director. And then Moira, if you want to introduce yourself, if you could tell everybody a little bit about you, your time working with AIM, both as a market participant and a board member, and a little bit about your farm, that would be awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Moira Kuhn. My husband, Jesse, and I own Marin Roots Farm. The farm has been at the market for, I'd actually have to double check, but I think it's safe to say 2 decades. We are certified organic. Right now, we're only about 15 acres, but we've been up to 45 acres in the past. And the farmers markets have been a really big piece of our farm over all the years. I've also been lucky enough to be a board member. I just finished my term off the board for, I think it was 11-ish years. And I'm still on a few committees, which have been fantastic. I think that sums me up.
Awesome, thank you. So Lauren, if you go to the next slide. So we'll jump right in. So our environmental and agriculture integrity at AIM has been an integral part for the past 15 or so years, with the main purpose to increase consumer confidence in the products being sold and represented at the farmers markets, and to support and strengthen the relationships between the producers and AIM staff, as well as the shoppers, and make sure that we are providing a fair and financially viable marketplace for farmers, ranchers, and seafood sellers, so that the customers can come to the market and know what they are purchasing is actually what's being represented, as well as make sure that all of the farmers, seafood sellers, ranchers that are coming to the market have an opportunity to be selling their goods in a way that is not being undercut or coming to unfair competition from people who may be purchasing and buying and reselling their products at the market, and just keeping it as transparent as possible. Next slide, please. I believe most of you are aware, but AIM is a 501c3 nonprofit. We operate 9 certified farmers markets throughout the Bay Area, as well as food access programs to underserved communities and sort of food deprived areas where people may have trouble getting to the grocery store or having access to local fresh fruits and vegetables and agricultural products, as well as educational programs through our Dig in the Market education series, in which we do provide tours at the farmers market, tours at farms, and then go visit classrooms as well. Next, please. So an overview of this, we're going to start with going into a little bit about what is a certified farmers market and how does that differ from just going to the grocery store, a flea market, or other public events, and how they are structured at AIM, a little bit about our rules and regulations, our overall farm audit program, and then how we provide market participant support as well. Next slide. And if anybody has questions at any point, feel free to either type them in the chat or raise their hand and we can answer. So start off, what is a certified farmers market? There are a lot of different marketplaces throughout California, grocery stores, flea markets, bazaars, various places that you can go to get either groceries, fruits and vegetables, or other components. Certified Farmers Market, however, is a program through the state of California that was created in, I believe, 1977 that creates exemptions for farmers to sell direct to consumers without having to go through the standardized packing, labeling, and sizing and grading requirements that were required at the time when it was created. This was also made to help support small to medium-sized farms throughout California so that they can go direct to the market. You will sometimes see markets that are not certified. That means products could be coming from anywhere. It doesn't have to be from the grower directly. But when it is certified, it has to be all products, agricultural products from California. So who determines the rules at a certified farmers market is actually pretty interesting. The state has their direct marketing rules that set the baseline for a certified farmers market. Every certified farmers market in the state has to meet those requirements at a minimum to operate. However, the state does allow for organizations operating the farmers market to create rules that go beyond the states, which is something that AIM does participate in, is through our rules and regulations committee and our rules and regulations. We've created rules that we believe increase the transparency and the opportunities at farmers markets for small to medium-sized farms to succeed without competing against bigger markets, potential resellers, and that just support the overall agricultural community in California. So I did touch a little bit about who qualifies to sell at a certified farmers market. If you have a certifiable agriculture product, you must have a certified producer certificate to sell within the certified farmers market. Items that can be certified are fresh produce, vegetable, nuts, grains. Those are the certifiable products. The state does also allow non-certifiable agriculture products to be sold at the market as well, which would entail livestock products, seafood products, and dairy-based products. As long as you are, for livestock and dairy, you must be producing those to be in the certified farmers market. I touched just very briefly, I kind of skipped over. So all of the certified farmers markets that AIM runs are actually 2 events occurring at the same time. There's the certified farmers market itself, which is where all of the agricultural products are being offered. And in coordination with the certified farmers market, we also operate community events, which are the areas that you'll find prepared foods, artisan craft vendors, and the hot food booths or non-agricultural products that have to be separate from the farmers themselves. The next slide, please. All right, so I touched briefly on why some of the rules and regulations might differ from organization to organization, even though the state does regulate and have their overall rules. In the past, we have there have been issues throughout the state of sellers misrepresenting products at markets, and other issues with transparency and being able to check, which is why AIM has formulated rules and regulations that are often stricter than the state as far as what can be sold. The state also doesn't set any rules or regulations about things like size of setup at markets, the cost to be at a market. So that's also where AIM's rules and regulations, that committee comes together to set things like the pricing for stalls, how much space you're allowed to take up at a booth, and even which products you're allowed to bring to the market, even if it's on your certified producer certificate. There are rules that AIM can create or can place restrictions on products being offered at markets. We're also allowed to set standards that are different from the state that could be related to, are you using environmentally friendly growing practices? Are you certified organic? How far away are you from the site of the location? And use those to dictate the composition of vendors at a market. All of these rules and regulations have to be approved by our board of directors. AIM does have a subcommittee that's comprised of board members and at-large committee members that meet once a month to review any potential rule concerns, and then also evaluate potential rule changes. Some of you may be familiar with most recently that we updated our livestock rules and regulations to improve the transparency in what is allowed to be sold for livestock products at the markets. To create that, our committee came together and we hired an outside livestock consultant. We hosted meetings with livestock producers that currently sell at AIM's markets, as well as met with other outside specialists from UC Extension and other organizations to determine what those rules may look like and what we want to propose. And once those were formulated, they are then presented to the full board of directors for a vote on whether or not to add those rules. Some of the other areas we've had that we've recently focused on are free speech rules and regulations, second certificates, seafood sellers, and some more just general smaller rules and regulations. Moira, do you have anything to add about sort of the rules and regulations committee?
No, I think that sums it up. I should have said at the beginning that I have been lucky enough to serve on that committee the entire time I've been on the board and continue to do so now. And I've also served on the farm audit committee in the past. I would say that there are times where the rules and regulation committee will move at a slower pace from the outside than sometimes we want, because we really are trying to deliberate all the angles and make sure that we're really keeping the new the proposed new rules in perspective of how it's going to affect market participants who are currently in the market and who will come into the market in the future. And that's why it's also really important that that committee has people from all representations, has produce and livestock and fishers and people from other walks of life as well. So
Awesome. Thank you. Lauren, can you go to the next slide, please? All right. So rules and regulations. What good are rules and regulations without enforcement or implementation? So this is where we get into more of the farm audit program and more the meat of the integrity program. And that all starts with the new applications we receive. So we go over a little bit of what does it look like for AIM when we receive a new application for a prospective vendor, as well as during the renewal process, and how that ties in then after that to farm audits at the actual farm, stall audits at the market, and follow-up responses. So something that I think we've all heard a lot about is that AIM has very long applications. We ask a lot of questions, and they can be very time consuming. So the reason why we have very extensive rules, we really want to make sure we get to know the producer very well and to make as informed of a decision as we can before bringing somebody into the market, so that we have a full understanding of what's the size and scope of their farm or business, how might that impact other producers, and are they actually doing what they say they are. So the very first part, when an application comes in for a farmer, livestock producer, or seafood seller, it will get flagged and sent over to me, and I put together a first level review so that it summarizes what the business grows or sells at the market, some of the basics of what is the size of the farm, how many acres are they cultivating, are they certified organic, what products are they requesting to sell, and which markets are they requesting to sell at. Once that's put together, I'll add any notes of anything that stands out, such as unique products. Are they a smaller or bigger on the scale of who we already have? And what environmental practices are they using? That then gets sent over to all of the market managers who are managing the markets the farm requested, so that they can make their initial decision of if they are interested. If they do have interest in the market, the next step in the application process is that I will reach out to that producer to schedule an on-site farm audit, in which I'll go out to their farm, confirm that everything on their application is correct and aligns with what they submitted. So looking at things like, do they actually have the same number of acreage that they submitted on the application? Are they growing the products they have? And then looking a little more detailed about if somebody says that they're using regenerative practices, are we actually seeing that when we're out on the farm? Do they have things like hedgerows planted? Are they using cover crops? Are they composting? And identifying those. And then also, when going through each of the crops growing, marking off if they're listed on their certified producer certificate and keeping a running tab of things that may be left off, so that we can provide them with that feedback and support. If we move forward with bringing you into the market, we can follow up with a list of, hey, here are all the crops that we did see, here are the crops that we did not see on your certified producer certificate, so that the producer can get their certificates updated prior to joining the markets to ensure that everything is in compliance with the state regulations. and we can avoid any potential issues of them coming to the market and there being products not listed. Okay, and this is also the initial farm audit for a new applicant. You can go to the next slide. It's all right, it's what I'm talking about already. When going to the farm audit, it also gives us an opportunity to document any potential projects and practices that a farm is hoping to implement in the near future and identify any potential funding opportunities that AIM comes across through grants, working with the RCDs or NRCSs, and steering producers towards some of those grants if they're looking for things like um, subsidizing compost, wanting to build new fencing, but not unsure of where to get the funding for that. Converting some of their pumps to solar are all things that we've noticed at some farms and then been able to help steering funding opportunities for. So that's the sort of the on-farm audit process for a new applicant. It differs slightly if you are an existing market participant, and that's where stall audits at the actual farmers markets come into play. So if you're a certified producer at a market currently, you may have recently had a manager come to your booth and inform you that they will be conducting a stall audit at your booth, in which they will be grabbing your certified producer certificate and reviewing everything for sale at your booth that day and ensuring that it's listed on your certified producer certificate. They'll also be checking things like signage. Is your booth set up properly? Do you have weights? They'll be taking pictures to document everything being sold and then submitting it through a digital audit form, which is one of the biggest changes we've implemented to stall audits over the past about year at this point. The intentions of doing the stall audits are a little bit twofold. There's the first, that the state requires we ensure everything being sold is listed on a certified producer certificate. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen the either county or state ag inspectors come to markets and do that same process. If something isn't listed on a certified producer certificate when they do their inspections, AIM as an organization also receives a violation as well for allowing products to be sold not listed on certified producer certificates. So that's a part of why we're doing that, is to go around making sure. And then secondly, it's so that if we have a farm audit scheduled, we can verify that, hey, this past week you had these products offered for sale. And then when we go out to the farm, we can confirm that we do see those either growing or in storage or where they were growing, and be able to line those up together and verify that they are being sold. The stall audits are also a great time for managers to get to know more about each farm, what products are being offered, and then communicate that information to shoppers and customers who either come up to the information booth looking for something or are just curious about the producers in general. So it does work in both ways. It also allows us to, with the new digital forms, whenever a stall audit is submitted, the owner of the farm also receives a copy of that complete form that details everything from the pictures that were there, and then check boxes for signage. Did you have everything up? Did you have weights on your tent? Were you giving out samples? And it provides a much more transparent process. So if there are questions, we can immediately work with you to resolve them. And especially at markets where the owners may not be present, it gives them an opportunity to see their setup, see what's going on, and then answer any questions that managers or myself might have in a much more timely manner without going a few weeks with questions unanswered or even unasked. Let's see. let's see, we can go over to also, one thing about the stall audits. So here's, you can say here, here's a copy of the form if you have not seen it. One of the things is during stall audits, there may be times where we come across product that is not listed on your certified producer certificate. If that is the case during the stall audit, then the manager would talk to you off to the side, ask you if you have any amended certificates, or maybe it's listed under a different name because different counties and different areas do list similar products differently on all the certified producer certificates. And if we find that a product isn't listed on the certified producer certificate, then the manager will talk to you and let you know that you need to remove that product from the table for the remainder of the day and get your certified producer certificate amended to add that crop. That's also then a time when I would follow up during the week to confirm that you received the audit, and what next steps are you taking to get the product added to your certificate, and ensure that you send us a copy of that as soon as that is ready. All right, now we can go to the next. Yeah, so that is the bulk of the farm audit program. It does differ a little bit for non-certified producers selling agricultural products like livestock and seafood sellers. Those are two of the categories we've most recently updated. Because there are no certified certificates or certified producers, like lists of production for livestock and seafood, those are two categories that it's also very important that we ask a lot of questions on the application so that when we go out to the farm, we can verify that all of that's occurring, that you're adhering to our requirements for owning and raising livestock. And then for those two categories, we do also have further requirements that we may at times request documents such as slaughter receipts, processing and cut and wrap records as well, to ensure that the number of animals being sold aligns. And then one other topic that we don't have a slide on is load lists. So load lists are a requirement by the state, but also an extremely helpful and important tool for AIM when we go do on-site farm visits, to be able to confirm that things being represented at the booth and on the farm are also being documented on your load list. If load list, we put all three of these sort of methods together to get the whole picture and be able to verify the production at the market. So although it is a state requirement, it is also an AIM requirement for the load list, and it should line up as closely as possible to what's being sold at the market with the quantities as well. All right, so that's mine. I guess we can turn it to the Q&A.
I have a question quickly about the load lists. I was just talking to someone recently who I didn't know this, but that people were using or needed to use load lists to get their organic certifications renewed. Can you explain why the state requires load lists as well as AIM?
So I can, from the state perspective, Moira, or maybe a producer on here, can talk about the organic certification part of that a little more. So the state originally added the load list to make it more of a legal offense if people are misrepresenting what's being sold at the market, and as a method to corroborate what they list on their CPC of how the quantities that they're growing, to try to ensure that there's some level of transparency and corroboration between how much you have planted and how much you could be selling, and to identify if they're exceeding that quantity drastically, or if they're leaving stuff off. They made it an actual statute so that if you're misrepresenting on that, it gave the state a way to actually apply fines and have follow-up compliance. There have been instances over the years that producers are misrepresenting what they're selling on their load list or at their booth. And in severe instances, the state can revoke certified producer certificates for up to 12 months and levy fines against a producer. It's very rare, and is more in extreme cases of producers not actually having a farm or blatantly buying and reselling stuff, especially in years where there's a late frost and it kills off all of the blooms, and it's a very low yielding year. The state has utilized those during investigations. Whenever the county ag inspectors do come to the farmers market and do inspections, they generally do request copies of all load lists from that past weekend that they were at the market, so that they can compare what did they see during their inspections and what did farms report as being sold. Moira, do you have, or any of the other people participating, know more about the organic element though?
Yeah, and I don't mean to put Annabelle on the spot, but she's got a great system for this as well, if she's willing to speak on it. For the certified organic, it has to do with your mass balance audit. And so for producers who are selling at the farmers market, they want to see, if you grow, let's say, turnips, they want to be able to see how much seed you bought during that time period, which is usually annually, and then how much you grew, how much was picked, how much was packed, how much was sold, and what was left over. And so quite a few producers I know will use a internal document, like an Excel sheet, to track all of that. And then the sold portion will be their load list that they will then, I know a few producers will send that to AIM electronically. And if Annabelle's willing to speak more on it, we'll see.
Yeah.
Annabelle just in the chat, perfect, Moira, also my experience.
Yeah, I'll also add, while we do pass out standardized forms for the load lists, we do also have a handful of producers who will pre-print out their packing list of what they're bringing to the market, and then just add to that the quantities sold to simplify it and make sure that it's easier for their staff to turn in each day.
And so I'll add to that for producers who are doing that, Chase, like myself, I then take a photo, keep it digitally. So there's also that option if people don't want to go completely digital.
Yeah, and then one thing I didn't touch on, also that's more just about AIM and myself. For those of you who don't know, I am in the process of taking a regenerative agriculture technical assistance provider certification program through Chico State's Center for Regenerative Agriculture and Resilient Systems. And we are looking for more ways to incorporate technical assistance to producers and incorporate that into our overall integrity and audit program to help with identifying opportunities for implementing environmentally friendly, climate smart practices on farms and help with things like carbon farm plans, healthy soils, grant applications, and other programs like that throughout the state at with all of our producers that are interested. Any other questions?
I just heard, I think, Darian speaking, but is that true, Darian?
That was me. Can you hear me? Cool. Chase, thanks for this. I was just wondering if you could touch on value-added products and what needs to be on CPCs for producers for those.
Yes, definitely. So that is one of the more intricate sort of things that comes up. For value-added products, a value-added product, according to the state names rules, is any agricultural product that the value has changed from processing it. Some of the common things are hot sauces, tomato sauces, wreaths, processed olives, olive oils. So anything that is value added being sold at the market, all of the primary ingredients have to be listed on your certified producer certificate. There are exemptions for flavorings and spices and preservatives. So if you are using lemon as a preservative, then it doesn't have to be on your certified producer certificate. Or if it's an incidental flavoring and doesn't change the full composition of your product into something else. An example of that would be if you have apple cider, if you're making hard apple cider, that's considered an agricultural product. If you add a flavor to it just to change the flavor profile, but it doesn't fundamentally change it into a different product, then that's okay. Similar with like hot sauces and salsas, if you're adding salt, if you have some sort of, what would be an example, like not tapatio, because that is a hot sauce, but if you're adding lemon to that and it just changes the flavoring, or peppers, but it's still processed tomatoes, that's okay. Vinegar is another ingredient that is allowed as a stabilizer and for flavoring, but the bulk of the product still has to be maintained as the ag products. And then with honey, you can sell wax. There's been debate and some push back and forth with the state to loosen candles are a good example. The state deems that as soon as you add a wick to the wax, you've increased the value material. And wreaths are the other one that comes up regularly, which I believe I can look into a little further. I believe the state has loosened their guidelines for wreaths to now allow something like a wire to hold it in place. Prior, they considered that to be a not allowed value add because a wire was not an agricultural product. But it really can differ from product to product. So if anybody has specific questions about products, I'd be happy to answer them if you want to send me an email. It can get really intricate as we get into the different categories of products. But in short, all of the ingredients need to be listed on your certified producer certificate if it is an agricultural product that's being processed. And it's by the variety as well. So if you're creating a spaghetti sauce, the tomatoes have to be listed, the garlic, and any other, and it has to be the type of tomatoes as well. Does that answer your question, Darian?
Sure does. Thank you.
Cool. So is there anybody in the webinar who has gone through the stall audit process or the farm audit process that that felt like there was a benefit to it that they'd be willing to talk about, or any questions they have about that specifically?
Moira, I saw you raise your hand there, and I'm curious if you would share about whatever that experience was for you, but then also just like from your perspective as a farmer and as someone who's kind of been with AIM through its many iterations of the integrity program, just like what it means to you and what your experience has been like.
Yeah, and please, other market participants on the Zoom can always jump in too. But I just want to highlight that as far as I know, AIM is the only farmers market organization in California that has an integrity program that includes farm audits and stall audits that connect all the pieces that Chase has talked about. I believe there's one more out of state, but as far as in California, it's a really big deal that it's run in-house. It's created for the farmers markets at AIM, for the market participants. And so that's a really big deal. It's my experience as a market participant and a producer has been great with the program. We were one of the first round to be audited on farm back in decades ago. I forget exactly what year that was. And the experience was really great because my experience with ag inspectors who come to my stall is sometimes they have too much on their plate and may not take the time to listen to me or my concerns. They also might not be able to recognize produce that's in the stand. And so then I may get into arguments with an ag inspector that is indeed mustard. And yes, it's on my CPC, and they want to say it's lettuce and it's not. And so it's been great to have someone come to the farm and the stall and the farmer's market stall who really is there on my behalf and does recognize that it's mustard, and listens to my questions and concerns. And I just really appreciate that the integrity program is highlighting all the market participants out there who are doing the right thing and just reaffirming for market customers that we're trying to be as transparent as possible, and they really can trust that what is at the farmer's market is being grown by the producers, is being raised by the producers. And if it isn't, then it's a second certified product and that's labeled. And I just feel like as a consumer myself, who has a family, I really want to be able to trust where my food is coming from.
Awesome, thanks, Maria. And I'll add to that the whole goal of our integrity program of providing that transparency is to support the producers that are producing the products being sold, and really working with them to be in compliance with our rules and with the state's rules. There is a compliance aspect to it, but our main goal is not like, we're not going out looking for issues with producers. It's to be able to verify, provide that follow-up and the support and promotion of everything they're doing. That's great. I've heard in the past that there's been hesitancies of, oh, you're an extension of the ag department or the state, and that's not our goal at all. If we do find major infractions, there will be follow-up that is what we have our farm audit review committee for, to help us with making decisions when we do run into big issues. But for the most part, we try to handle everything directly with the producer, bring them into compliance, and make sure that it's a fair marketplace for everybody who is coming to the market and doing everything the right way. We we try not to involve the ag department unless it's absolutely necessary. And we're trying to build partnerships with the ag department to be more supportive and be a positive resource, not just a punitive organization who shows up to punish producers that are trying to do things the right way. Oh yeah, and then so kind of the next steps of how we're looking to move forward with our integrity program. Some of you may have had this happen already, but we are putting together a schedule and tracking system so that we can continue doing ongoing audits with existing market participants, with the goal of doing an on-site audit of every certified producer at least once every 3 years. It may be more regular if there are repeat concerns or issues occurring at the market during stall audits, or just things that we notice or we're in that area. But our goal is to do recurring on-farm audits once every 3 years to all producers, so that we can maintain those relationships, see how the farm's evolving over time, and continue to verify the production of the farms. So during those times, you'll be hearing from myself or somebody else from AIM if we plan on being in that area to schedule those audits.
Chase, would you talk a little bit about second certs for folks? Just like a basic overview, and also just like where AIM is headed in terms of second certs.
Yeah, so for second certificates are when a certified producer adds to their certified producer certificate with the permission of another grower that they are authorized to either sell for that grower at the market, or the other grower is authorized to sell for them. From the state level, you have to get that added to your certified producer certificate. You're allowed to have up to 2 per CPC. At the market, you have to have those items separated with signage for every of what farm it's actually coming from, and have the same signage requirements as your first cert products. For AIM, you have to get approval prior to bringing those products to the market. You aren't allowed to bring any of the same 2 commodities on any given day. So you can't be bringing apples from a second certificate and apples from your primary certificate. Another thing is, like, if you have conventionally grown products, you can't then bring the same commodity from an organic farm. That's the baseline state procedure and what's allowed. As far as AIM, we are in the process of creating a timeline for some new second certificate rules that will make it harder, or I won't say harder, but it will be more narrow of who is approved to bring second certificate products to the market. It will also require any second certificate producer to submit and complete a vendor application, and then have a formal farm audit conducted at that farm as well to verify the products. The board has approved a new policy, but we haven't implemented it yet or set the timeline for implementation. That's something we're discussing right now, and we'll have more information. But the goal is to reduce the number of products being offered from second certificates that are available at markets from primary growers, so that primary growers are prioritized and have the opportunity to sell products they're actually growing in a more equitable marketplace that isn't competing with people who may be bringing products from a different farm without us knowing exactly what's going on at that farm, and just to promote primary producers being at the market. but we'll have more information shortly that's being sent out to all of our market participants that detail the new policy, the timeline for implementation, and what the next steps are if you are a producer who has second certificate products. And if anyone on this has more imminent questions about that, you can feel free to email me or call me, and we can start discussing that and what that will mean for you at the markets.
Do any other folks have any questions? Or any producers have any experiences they'd like to share?
I can ask another one that I think might be helpful for folks, which is I'm wondering if, Chase, you could talk about different labeling requirements specifically for closed or open packages. Like when people are packaging bulk lettuces, for example, at the market, what that looks like.
Yeah, definitely. So the general rule of thumb for labeling requirements for ag products, they only have to be individually labeled once you have a container that's closed. That could be a bag of lettuce or greens that you have tied shut, avocados that come in a closed container, clamshell style packaging for berries. All of as soon as it becomes a closed container, you have to have the quantity of the product labeled, what the product actually is. So it has to have the commodity name. And then you also have to identify the responsible party. In this case would be the farm the business name of the farm. Those are the standard labeling requirements for all products being sold in closed containers at markets. You have the business name, the quantity, including which would either be size, like if it's just 5 oranges, it could be 5 oranges. If you're doing it by weight, it would have to have the specific weight. And then, or like if something's jarred, how many fluid ounces are in that, and what the actual name of the commodity is. So it would have to specify the variety as well. And yeah, so that's, I know a lot of people, they do pre-pack it. They'll put bags of lettuce together so that it's easier and more convenient. If they're not tied shut, then you don't have to have those labeling requirements. Also, it can be as simple as handwritten onto the packaging with a Sharpie or a pen, or it could be more formal, fully printed stickers and labels that you put onto it. If you are selling livestock or seafood, there are more detailed requirements for that. For livestock, you have to have what the type of meat it is, the cut, the ranch of origin that it came from, along with the size, weight as well. And I'm not sure if there's any seafood sellers here, but for seafood, you have to have the species of the fish, the boat that it was caught on, as well as where it was landed, and if it is fresh or has been previously frozen. Cam, see your hand up?
Hey guys, sorry if I have background noise. I'm kind of along the freeway here. Thank you for putting on this webinar. This is really useful information. I'm with Petit Teton Farm. Just want to share our recent experience with Farm Audit because you came out, Chase, and it was a really good visit. And I mean, just to kind of compare where AIM was, a decade ago when I think the last time you guys came out, it was just so much more thorough and thought out. And for us, like we're in Mendocino County, and I know a lot of the other counties maybe are different as far as their interaction with county inspectors and whatnot, but in our county, nobody comes out. So to have AIM coming out to, you know, verify that we're actually legit, that we're doing what we say we're doing, you know, and then be able to communicate that back at the market is invaluable to us. And honestly, it's just helpful because you go over all of our perennials and you point out the ones that died. So you do our work for us and we then remove them from our CPC. So there's a good partnership, I think, there. You know, and if the consumer is then, you know, understands that there is an interaction between the market association and the producers, it just instills the confidence that makes more consumers come to AIM markets. So thank you for doing what you're doing, guys.
Then, just does anybody else have any further questions or comments?
I'll just jump in for 1 second. If I was dreaming up a list of things I'd love to see from the Integrity program moving forward, one thing I'd love to see is more signage and marketing from the farmers market to customers, so that really highlights such an amazing program it is. And we used to, way back in the day, have our Integrity, our AIM audit check sign at all the booths, and those have disappeared a little bit over time. And I just would love to see the program get promoted more so that customers really get educated on it.
Awesome. Yeah, if anybody else in here has any feedback from their experiences or concerns they're curious about, feel free to ask as well.
Chase, do you want to, I know most people have it, but do you want to drop your contact info in the chat just in case people don't, and then people can reach out with questions? I also want to share, like, based off what Moira and Cam both just said, it's as AIM employees and market managers specifically, getting to visit a farm gives us so much more ability to speak on that farm and to like communicate to the customers all the many incredible things that are happening in that space. And I think that creates a really dynamic relationship between customers and managers and farmers that really supports farmers and makes customers so excited and want to know more and want to understand more. So it's really beneficial for us to be able to like understand what we're trying to support.
Awesome. I think I've covered just about everything, unless there's any last minute questions. I know we have a little more time on for what for the schedule. But if there aren't any other questions,
yeah, we can hang out for a few more minutes just in case folks feel like asking questions. And then also just a reminder, I just dropped the survey link in the chat if folks can take a sec to fill that out. But yeah, we'll be here for a little bit longer just in case anyone wants to hang and ask questions.
if anyone's dying to have me come out, feel free to let me know.
Chase, this is maybe just, I don't know if this is interesting to anyone else, but I'm curious. I know now you're doing like livestock audits. Like, what does that look like in contrast to a produce audit?
They are pretty similar. That's where we rely a lot on the application questions. However, and then that will also go up, verifying slaughter records, storage, what people have in storage. Do they have the actual animals out on their land? Do they have enough land for the amount of animals they say they're raising, and what has been sold at the markets themselves? That's a big part where it becomes really important for checking documents before those audits, the land, because and verifying that. But it's pretty similar. Go out to the actual ranch, view the property and the animals that are living, what's in storage, and the numbers. Do they sort of equal what how many animals you're planning on processing for that year? Do you have enough that are alive and to the duration that you can get them processed? Sometimes it can, it's talking a lot more, but what are the ear tags? What do they correspond to? Do you have, so it's very similar, just with different criteria that we use to verify and check.
Cool, thank you. We have a question from Lucas, which is, Chase, I'm curious about the regenerative organic program you mentioned. Will AIM take a position on regenerative organic certification, i.e. a certain set of standards to call a producer regenerative in the future?
So currently we do not. That's something it's evolving pretty rapidly, and I know the state just proposed an official definition for it. At this time, we don't have specifics. We'll sort of follow probably the state's lead initially, similar to claiming you're organic at the market. You have to have be registered with the state and have a third-party certification. If they implement that, we will go with it, and then we'll participate in any like public comments, partnering with different organizations to provide feedback and advocacy, as well as that moves through more of the regulatory process. And just working, and that's where will there be a difference between regenerative organic, just claiming you use regenerative practices or climate smart practices? We'll work with various partner groups to that, and then in an ideal world, when I finish the program, and if there are other certifications that I can get to be a part of the more formal certification procedures when those are outlined, I think it's definitely something AIM is interested in being more a part of. I would just say one of the big things also one of the big takeaways I've taken from that is that a lot of the producers we do work with are using some form of climate smart practices or regenerative practices. They just may not even know that that's what it is. They're doing that because it's the way they believe in farming and tending to their land and improving their soil health and doing things what they believe is the right way. So also then helping those producers to get the recognition for those practices and potential funding opportunities or certifications that are out there. But as if I didn't directly answer, because AIM isn't at this point taking a position on it, but I'm sure it will get to the point where we do take a more formal position based on what our board feels is the best direction to help with our mission and climate smart agriculture.
I'm feeling bad that I'm asking so many questions. If anyone wants to interrupt or ask another question, please do. But this was maybe something that should have been asked earlier in the presentation, but I'm wondering if it would be helpful to explain how AIM supports folks when something is not matching up on their CPC, and when you go and audit the farm, it's like a lot of times it might be because people forgot to add it to their CPC, or they were confused about a rule or something like that. And I'm curious about, yeah, just how to express the like support process that comes from like, not like, oh God, there's something wrong, like we're in trouble, but what happens, like what can AIM do to sort of help people, I don't know, align?
Yeah, there's sort of, depending on what the issue is, there's varying ways. Our first initial approach is having a direct conversation with the producer, giving the producer an opportunity in a one-on-one setting to discuss what's going on. If it's just something as simple as, you know, an administrative mistake of, hey, you know, when we applied for our CPC at the beginning of the year, our county just told us to let us know what we planned on planting. We got to June or to May when we were doing our new plantings, and we decided to actually add some stuff, and it was just an oversight. Then that's a very easy conversation, just following up with them, informing them of the process to get it added to their CPC and have it amended. If it's, and then even then, if it's concerns with, you know, the actual product being sold and verification, it's once again a follow-up conversation, explain with them directly. And then if coming out to the farm, verifying production, having a follow-up conversation of areas where there may still be concerns, and then really just trying to work with them to find out, what is this issue? Is it, you know, like, and I'm pretty direct. Most of the people, the producers here that I've done audits with, they are pretty aware that I'll just ask flat out if I have some sort of a suspicion or something. I'll just ask them flat out, like, hey, this doesn't seem like it's lining up. Are you getting it from somewhere else? Are you getting it from here? If you want to partner with somebody for a second certificate, here's what that process looks like. How much longer should we expect this product at market? If it's the end of the season, how much do you have in storage? And then documenting that. And then if there is another incident, then that's when we would generally bring our farm audit review committee into it, review what's occurring, and then the farm audit review committee would propose actions, whether it's a short-term suspension from the market or complete removal from the market in very extreme instances where we go out and there's nothing growing, or like, hey, you know, this farm keeps representing their product as organic. We've had multiple discussions with them. They continue to sell product as organic that is not certified. It's not registered with the state. And then it would kick over to the farm audit review committee to propose the next steps of punishment, but of what's the next step to try to bring them into compliance. And then at some point, it may result in either suspension or removal. The very first step, I guess, which I kind of skipped over if we have repeat incidents, would be putting the vendor in a probationary status for generally in the past, it's been about 6 months, which just does not allow the producer to expand into more AIM markets if we've had repeat issues. But that could be anything from behavioral issues at the market, how they're treating customers, AIM staff, and just the general public, to actual production issues. But the first step is having that discussion with them, making sure they understand our rules and regulations, asking them to stop whatever that action was that was breaking our rules, and giving them that opportunity to correct the issue, and move forward together.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. The goal is to have everybody in compliance and us to be able to support them, promote them, and do that with confidence so that the customers and other producers feel like they're all having a fair opportunity to sell their products for the value they believe is fair and what they need to be viable.
It sounds too just like so important to just ask questions if you have them. 'Cause-
Definitely, as open of communication as we can have. There are very rare, especially, you know, it's farming, weather can dictate everything. If an issue arises, we want to be in open communication. If you know there's a frost that's coming, or a frost comes, you think there's going to be damage to your crops, letting us know as early as possible so that we can, so that we don't think that you're just no showing at the market or found another avenue to sell that you want to go to. We can also then communicate that to the consumers who are coming regularly and not putting sort of the parallels together, and they're not looking at what the weather was like down in Fresno. They just know what it was like in the Bay Area. So for them, it's a lot. It doesn't make sense to a lot of consumers when a producer doesn't show up for 3 or 4 weeks when they normally would. And that same thing can happen to managers where we're working with numerous producers. It can be easy at times from my experience if somebody doesn't reach out and doesn't contact me when I was managing markets to just start thinking like, did they just not show up? What's going on? I had somebody I could have brought in, but we're not in a rush to replace people. We want to provide them that support, knowing that if something happens to your crop or your products, you still have somewhere to come back when your next crops are ready to go. We're not looking just to replace you immediately.
Just so folks here know, before we head out, we are hosting a resource fair in May. It will be Tuesday, May 27th, but let me triple check that that's true. Yeah, Tuesday, May 27th, and it'll be in Berkeley, and it's going to be a resource fair for all producers, but there are going to be a lot of technical assistance providers like RCD, NRCS, California Farm Link, Kitchen Table Advisors, CAF, just a lot of folks who are trying to support farmers and figure out how to get everyone closer to what they need, closer to funding resources and on-farm resources and compliance resources and all that stuff, and answer questions. And there will be food and just time to share together and be together for a bit before the season just totally snowballs and we're in the middle of summer. So if you all want to join us for that, I'm sending a link in the chat for more details. And if you have any more questions about it, feel free to reach out to me or anyone at AIM. Yeah.
Cool. And I guess my one last sort of note is for the producers, don't be surprised depending on where you are if we call to schedule an audit when it's not the peak of your growing season. That sometimes can also be some of the more valuable time to go out when you are doing plantings, you still have cover crops, and you're still doing other stuff on the farm that we do find valuable to know about and be able to sort of pass along to customers and partners with AIM as well.
Well, I think we can head if everyone's feeling good. Thank you so much, Chase, and thank you so much, Moira, and everyone who came. It was really great to get to learn a bit more about this and spend some time together.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you, everybody who made the time to come. I know this is a very, very busy time of year for all of you, and there's a lot going on. So appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Arindira. Thank you for your interpretation.